The Scottish Empire has been a strong country and people for hundreds of years. Their empire stood the test of time. The Scottish people have had many heroes and people of importance in their history books, but none are as important to them as their famous guardian of Scotland, William Wallace. William Wallace's selfless deeds helped put a kink in the British war machine and put a wedge between the British crown and the British people. William Wallace's mother died during childbirth, and he was raised by his father, Malcolm Wallace. William Wallace's parents were lesser nobles, which allowed him to get an education in sword fighting and politics. By the age of 14, William Wallace had been knighted by his father. By the age of 15, he had left home to make a name for himself in his homeland of Scotland. William Wallace spent 3 years serving as a knight before settling down with the Maid Marian and having one child. At the time, the British were trying to breed out the Scottish nobility and enforce their own nobility upon the Scottish people. One cold May morning, the Maid Marian went out to get some water from the town. When she got to town, a British tariff forced himself upon her. When she refused, the British tariff slit her throat and left her in town square. Outraged by the news, William Wallace gathers a mob of men and slaughters every British soldier in town. William knew if he was caught, he would be hung, so he went on the run with his men, raiding and pillaging British encampments whenever he could, gathering more men along the way. Eventually, William Wallace gathered over 500 men, becoming a real threat to the British Empire. When the British Empire asked the Scottish government to condemn William's actions, the Scottish government refused and declared war on England. With King Edward I fighting the French, it was up to Prince Edward II to fend off the Scottish invaders. Thinking the Scottish people were no more than barbarians, Prince Edward II sent in an inexperienced army with an inexperienced general to fight off the Scottish. At the beginning of the war, from 1296 to 1297, the British were winning. Eventually, the Scottish cut off the British supply lines and started pushing the British back through the Scottish hills. Eventually, the Scottish had pushed the British all the way to Stirling, where Scottish territory ended and British territory began. It was at this battle when the Scottish proved themselves to the rest of the world. All eyes were on them and this battle. The events of this battle would change history in Scotland and Britain forever. For the first time in history, the British were using knights against barbarians and were still losing. The battle was a resounding success for the Scottish, with a casualty rate for the Scottish of only 100 and a casualty rate for the British at 1,200. After the Battle of Stirling Bridge, William Wallace kept on pushing into British territory, expanding the Scottish lines even further. After marching 3 months into British territory unopposed, Wallace demanded an unconditional surrender from him. Prince Edward II, not wanting to admit defeat, refused, so Wallace kept on pushing into British territory. After defeating the French in 1303, King Edward I came home to find his kingdom in disarray. He gathered an army and marched right into Scotland. Caught off guard, the Scottish were pushed all the way back into Scottish territory by King Edward's army. After pushing all the way into Falkirk, King Edward I was tipped off of the Scots position by Robert the Bruce. Thrilled by the news, King Edward I wasted no time in gathering his army and advanced on the Scots position, making sure to bribe Robert the Bruce not to charge with the cavalry. The following battle was quick and bloody. Being outnumbered 3-1, the Scottish lines crumbled before they even began, and without the help of the cavalry, they didn't stand a chance. William Wallace managed to escape but was declared an enemy of the state and had to flee the country. From 1303 to 1305, William Wallace traveled around Europe, trying to gain support against the British. William returned home, but was captured quickly and returned to London, where he was drawn and quartered. His body was scattered to 4 different spots around Europe. Outraged by the death of William Wallace, the Scottish people revolted again against the British, this time led only by Robert Bruce. Thanks to William Wallace's efforts, the next 100 years or so for the British nobles were very difficult. The British Empire had trouble keeping conquered countries in check after Scotland was freed. Thanks to William Wallace, Scotland was free up until 1707 when the UK was formed. William Wallace will live on forever in Scotland as the man who freed them from British tyranny.